Okay, everyone, welcome back to a very special 4th of July edition of the Vendetta Sports Media Daily Show. Along with the one and only Matt Hannafin, I'm Chris Bagdonis. Matt, how are you doing on this Independence Day?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Yesterday, it was unfortunate. I was without power for like 8 hours, and so
Oh,
that wasn't
shoot.
great.
That is no
Um,
fun.
no, it wasn't like just like there was like a power pole. I think that's what you call it, power pole, power
Yes,
line.
it fell or something.
Yeah, no, it was just something that like happened to it, and so I was
Oh,
without
that
power for most of
sucks.
the day. I also reached my first Twitter limit yesterday, and so
Really?
I have read 1,000 tweets in one day. I listen. I learned my lesson. I won't do it again. It was unfortunate for sure. It was the late evening,
Dang.
the new Twitter restrictions
I know.
implemented by one Elon Musk. It got me. I got yesterday, and so
He
today
gotcha.
I'm gonna be a little bit more responsible with how many tweets I read. Um, but yeah, no, that was also unfortunate. I think that got lifted this morning, so that wasn't
It's
that
good because
that
that
happening
is
yesterday when summer league's going on, and obviously we're in the thick and thin of baseball.
yeah.
And so that wasn't great. Uh, but no, man, I'm doing well. We're in full fledged free agency.
Yep.
We're in full fledged Dame rumors. We're going to be in full fledged summer league uh, pretty soon. I mean, once July 7th hits, I know the California Classic and the Salt Lake City Summer League began yesterday. But no, man, I'm doing good. Happy Independence Day to all of those who celebrate out there. Uh, it's just a
Yeah.
wonderful day, man. I'm ready to get started.
I know, dude. I'm like thinking, where do we start? We have, like you just said, we have free agency in full swing. The summer league just cracked open. We have arguably the Yankees' best win of the season last night. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like where can we even start?
Well, it's just, I don't know if you've heard, but one Damian Lillard has been in the hotbed of trade discussions over the last several
Officially
days.
submitting a trade request.
He did it. He did it. I
And
was
to your
wrong.
point, Matt, he has made it clear he has one destination in mind with the exact two stipulations you've had for the past couple of
Yeah.
weeks, and he's both are now in place.
Saturday was a whirlwind because I had to be at a very important family event, for lack of a better word, and like as soon as I was about ready to leave, Chris Haynes tweet
The
that he's
bombshell.
requesting a trade. And of all days for me to be away from my computer, that just had to be that day. Thankfully he wasn't traded. It wasn't much
Man,
else.
that would have been
Requested a
code
trade.
red.
And then subsequent reports coming out about really him wanting Miami. And but that was it's just perfect timing.
It
Just
just
about
had to
ready to leave
be.
my house. I was like, oh man, like hopefully nothing big happens on the second day of free agency. Oh wait, a Damian Lillard trade request, and it's just my phone's blowing up as I'm driving. Uh, so that was an adventure. But yeah, Damian Lillard did finally request a trade. At least as of right now, it is the Miami Heat, the team that he does want to go to. Whether that becomes a reality or doesn't become a reality is a different story. There was subsequent reports that also mentioned the Brooklyn Nets, as we knew, because he's friends with Mikal Bridges. Um, and so I don't know if that will catch steam at all or whatnot, but at least it seems from Dame's camp through the media, whether it's Haynes, whether it's Sam Amick, who does a
Hartstein.
good job for
Yeah.
the Athletic, whether it's Shams, it is Miami right now. But then there's one reporter out there who is speaking from the Portland front
Point of
office
view.
perspective, and that's Woj.
Right.
Um, and Woj has been reporting over the last couple of days. And it's like, okay, I'm just going to preface by saying I don't want to smash these reporters,
Yeah, they're
whether
doing their
on one
job.
side or the other.
That's what they're paid to do. But
They're just
still,
doing their job, and they're disseminating information from that hear from particular sources and within certain organizations. But you could tell this is a particular instance where you could tell Woj is speaking from the Portland front office perspective, and he's been reporting over the last several days that, in essence, that Portland isn't. I don't want. They're not a fan of what Miami has to offer. I get that. That's
right.
understandable. And so it's kind of like for lack of better, this is a bad analogy, but it's kind of like they're playing tug of war right now, like who's eventually going to get their way. Whether it's Portland getting the best offer, which again they're doing their due diligence. 28 other teams are going to call
right
requesting about Dame, whether it's checking in to see what could they possibly offer, or whether there's 25% interest, 50% interest of making a trade, whatever. But at least just from Dame's camp, from the reporting that we've seen, it does look like he just wants to go to Miami. I think he's at this point, at least through the media, that's kind of well known at this point. I don't think anything's final until it's final. I mean, we've seen it. I mean, there's been different circumstances, but like we saw this with Kevin Durant last year, where it was like he requested trade. I believe it was the day one of free agency, like right before.
It was either Miami or the Suns, right?
Yeah, it was Miami or the Suns with other teams on his list, and he eventually rescinds that trade request. He gets traded a day before the deadline or 2 days before the deadline, whatever it was, to the Suns. Cool, awesome, great. With Donovan Mitchell last year, I don't think he requested a trade, but like we kind of knew that he was going to get traded, or at least there's interest of him wanting to leave.
And I can tell you as a Knicks fan, we really had our heartstrings pulled until the 11th hour.
Yeah, and it was like for him, it wasn't like he had one team in mind. It was like he obviously had interest in the Knicks because, I mean, I think he has family.
He's from Connecticut.
There. Yeah. Miami because, I mean, he has a relationship with Bam. And like there was a couple different teams, and then eventually it's not like he was going to say no to Cleveland. And so he eventually gets traded there. There was a little bit of smoke within 24 to 48 hours of that actually happening. But with Dame, it's an interesting circumstance because, I mean, I don't know if I've talked about it here, but I've talked about it in other spaces. He has the closest thing to a no trade clause without having a no trade clause because of the equity he's built up with that organization. And he, at least this particular instance, he's been like, no, Miami. Like it's been like Miami's like the one destination that he has his
set in stone
set on. And so it's not similar in that way to Durant or Mitchell. I'm just using those as recent examples. And there's been really maybe an instance or two where a player's requested a trade, or at least a player of Dame's caliber has requested a trade. He didn't get their way. And the one that I could think of off the top of my head, I mean, people have thrown this out there too, but Kawhi, when he wanted to LA and he gets traded to Toronto, I mean, he wins a championship. He eventually gets anyways. So I mean, that point's kind of moot, but he that's like the one instance where I've at least can recall that a player of his caliber has requested a trade and didn't eventually get their way. Again, I'll also say this. I tweeted this last night, but the Miami Heat, nearly 4 years to the day, signed and trade for Jimmy Butler, a 4-team deal where they had to get Portland and the Clippers involved because of matching salary.
The original departure of Josh Richardson, I might add, before his return.
Whiteside, Richardson, I know Mo Harkless was on the move. Myers, that was the deal that sent Myers Leonard to Miami when he was in Portland.
Yeah.
Like, it was a 4-team sign and trade. Miami signed Jimmy Butler without any cap space. Just think about that. They didn't have any cap space, and yet they signed Jimmy Butler to this 4-year max deal.
Yeah.
Or I don't
somewhere, somewhere around that.
4 for 180, something like that. So don't think the Miami Heat won't try to get a 3rd or 4th team involved if it ultimately comes down to that.
I mean, obviously,
and that's kind of the smoke that's been around this.
I was just gonna say, we've heard smoke that it could be potentially the Brooklyn Nets. They may have a bit of interest in Tyler Hero. Obviously, I saw that he's changing his social media profiles to remove the Miami Heat out of it, and I saw some interesting hypotheticals because obviously, you could offload Tyler Hero to Brooklyn, and I'm sure the Nets would be willing to give some picks or assets to Portland to kind of facilitate that.
Right.
But if the Heat kind of go in the route of, using their other contracts like Kyle Lowry, Duncan Robinson, eventually to acquire Dame, Nets fans, and I guess maybe Heat fans too, I've seen on Twitter, are saying an interesting hypothetical because we know, this name I'm about to drop, I think his last shot is in Miami. Would you trade Tyler Hero to the Brooklyn Nets for Ben Simmons and 2 first-round picks? Do you think they could some way revive his career down in, with Spo and maybe as a backup five, maybe as, something like that?
If Jimmy Butler wasn't on this team,
Yeah. I think, yeah, that's right. Who knows how their time
if
in
Jimmy
Philly
wasn't on
ended?
this team, I would. I mean, I've been more pro Ben than anti Ben, if I'm being completely honest, at least relative to the consensus. I mean, I do think the back injuries and like
The
the
other,
mental
yeah,
hurdle that he's had to clear, I think that's legit. I'm not saying that I mean, I'll also say that he just hasn't improved as a basketball player since he stepped foot in the league.
right.
I think there's truth to that too. But if Jimmy Butler wasn't on this team, I mean, people have mentioned this. I didn't know this beforehand. I don't know if this is a new development or not, but Jimmy and Ben do have the same agent.
Oh, I did
And
not know that.
so I don't know if there's any like dots that you're going to connect there, but Jimmy has had problems with Ben in the
Yeah,
past. And
their
that's, I
their
mean,
end
I
in
think,
Philly was not pretty.
I don't have any inside intel, but you could read online and you could read stories of that
Well-connected
stuff. And so
sources.
I'm not going to belabor that to you, but Jimmy has, at least to my knowledge, had issues with Ben when he was in Philly.
That's fair.
And so I
Yeah,
don't think it's, I mean, if you get Jimmy to sign off on it, sure. But I don't know if you would. So
yeah. I could see Brooklyn ending up with Tyler Hero. I just want to see what they are going to give up out of it. What that kind of price, if you will, or that valuation kind of looks like. But again, unfortunately, it's wait and see time. That I'm hoping that the sooner they get it done, the better. But also, I saw your tweets last night. The Heat have some pretty damn good young assets in there. They have a stable of horses who can play. That's all I can
yeah,
say, man.
I mean, yeah, Summer League did tip off last night. I don't. The thing with Summer League is when you're in trade negotiations for a star player and these names are being floated, I think you can tell whether a trade is close or not to close to happening or close enough to happen. I can't talk right now, but
Yeah, close. Yeah,
you can tell if the
close to the finish
player
line.
is or isn't playing. And if my guess is if there was a trade that was close to happening, the player wouldn't be playing. And so,
I think this is
yeah,
very
Summer League
smart,
did tip
though.
off last night. There has been plenty of discussions on the media as whether you would want to give up Jovic or Jaquez, who just signed his rookie deal, so he can't be traded officially for 30 days or whatever the case is. I mean, to get Damian Lillard, you're going to have to give up something, whether it's in a
Right.
2-team deal, a 3-team deal, 4-team deal, whatever the case is. I will mention the two other teams that have been, I guess, rumored to be a team in a 3-team deal or a 4-team deal is San Antonio and Utah.
Makes sense for both of them.
Yeah, it'd be very funny if Utah was the one that got involved because again, Danny Ainge, Pat Riley. I don't know how that would pan
Doing
itself
business
out.
with one
But
another.
yeah, I don't know how that would necessarily work, but they are a team of interest, and it's the Brooklyn thing is a little weird to me because it's like, wait, you would help Miami get the guy that you also want,
Right.
and so that's a little tricky. I don't know how that would work. I don't know if Miami would have to attach. I don't think they would have to attach an asset to Tyler because one, I don't think Tyler is that. I don't think he's that
He's showing enough
depreciated of an
value in the
asset.
league. Yeah.
And it's like also just the Tyler discourse is somewhat weird to me. Like people think he's on a terrible contract. It's like you look at some of the contracts around the league now, it's really not that bad.
Look,
It's really
it's a
not.
hot,
Like he's
a hot
going to be
take as a
making
Knicks fan,
27 mil
Matt.
per game this year.
Yeah.
His cap hit is barely in the top 10 for his own position in the league. And so it's like I don't really think for a guy who gets 20, he could get you 23, 24 points per game on a team where he was the team's leading scorer 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And so it's like he's not a bad player. I get he's probably not far along defensively as you would like him to be. I don't want to say he's a complete liability, but he's certainly not
Won a
an
six man of the
average
year
defender.
award, right?
Huh?
He's won a 6 man of the year award, right?
Yeah, he was a 6 man of the year. I mean, he was a guy who came into the league skinnier, and so he's had to bulk up, and so that's been something that's been like he's had to improve over time. But like every player has to improve their strength if we're being completely honest here.
That's the NBA we live in.
That's just the NBA that we live in. But like he's not a bad player, and the fact that there's this narrative that gets spun about him being like a non-impactful player, and I'm sure people are going to point to their playoff run about them making the finals without Hero for practically all of it. And it's just like he would have definitely helped. Like they could have definitely finished
series goes to Game 7
less than, especially in the Knicks and the Nuggets series where their shot making just wasn't as efficient as it was. I mean, he was their best shooter throughout the season. Like Tyler Hero is not a bad player for the people out there that think he's a bad player. He's not. And I know the contract, $27 million. It's probably not the most ideal, but it's not like, again, it's not some terrible ass contract. It's not some garbage contract.
I can tell you as a Knicks fan,
especially when you look at it after the fact.
It's better value than RJ Barrett. That's all I'm going to say as a Knicks fan. I'd rather Tyler Hero on his extension than RJ. And for the Nets,
it's a similar contract, so
they're similar. Yeah, I mean, it's really a matter of dollars and cents. But I think he makes a lot of sense on the Nets. I think that starting five of potentially Dinwiddie, Tyler Hero, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and Claxton, I think that could do some damage in the East.
They also just need more shot making.
Yeah, Bridges is obviously a revelation. But
yeah, that would help. I mean, it's like it also comes to like I don't know what these negotiations look like. I wish I could be a fly in the room with all of these girls now because I like that stuff. But I just wonder like what's going through Pat's head when he's just like, all right, we're gonna send our most valuable asset, arguably, to, or at least outside of Jimmy and Bam, to a conference rival. Like, is that what we want to do? Is that, I mean, again, and maybe I'm guessing it's something they want to do, but how much do they want to do it? I mean, if it's something you want, you're obviously getting Damian Lillard back. And so it's not like Tyler Hero, I don't think is a sticking point in Damian Lillard negotiations, at least Tyler Hero to the Nets. But nevertheless, it's just something I wonder how much they're considering. Like I've seen plenty of like, I mean, this is Heat fandom I'm talking about. This is an actual like front office scuttlebutt, but like, we don't want to give up Jovic or we don't want to give up Hawkins. I mean, I've done that too, but that's just the fun game of being on the internet. But I've seen legitimate being like, we don't want to give up either of these guys or like Caleb Martin or whatever. And it's like, I'm Caleb Martin. I don't want to say I'm Caleb Martin's biggest fan, but I covered him in college.
You followed him. He's a
guy who I've followed for now a half dozen years.
Yeah.
And so it's like, but Caleb Martin or Jaime Jaquez or Nikola Jovic shouldn't be like, you should not make a deal for Damian Lillard if it comes to that. Like that's ultimately, yeah, you don't want to give up this like a whole lot, but to get Damian Lillard, you're gonna have to play. You're gonna have to pay the pretty penny.
You gotta give something to get something.
Right. And also with like a 3-team deal, it makes it all the more likely that you're gonna have to give out more assets, for money to match. But also that means you could be getting like, I don't know, an extra throw-in player from the third team or Portland or whatever the case is. And so it's kind of like a give and take type deal. Like, I don't think if it was a 4-team deal, hypothetically, I don't think Miami would just get Damian Lillard. They'd get Damian Lillard. They would get maybe a throw-in player who's either out of the rotation or a young player who's not making enough money, like whatever the case is. Or maybe like now we're seeing second-round picks getting traded like wildfire. And so maybe you get like a 2027 second-round pick. I don't know. Not that it's incredibly valuable, but you wouldn't just get Damian Lillard. And so
Miami Heat are a team that could really strike on that. Obviously, second round picks, undrafted, etc. It's not the worst thing in the world to have.
Yeah, but again, it's just fun reminding people they also did trade 3 second-round picks to move up in the second round for KZ Okpala in the Tyler Hero draft, and that didn't work out.
That's true.
Not to say that again, they're not going to bat 1,000, but nevertheless,
they've gotten some good value over the years, but
they do. But it's just like when I think of second-round picks, I just think about that. It's like Pat was ahead of the game trading 3 second-round picks in a single draft. Where it's like, wait, what? Or not? I mean, not 3 in the same draft.
But it's
picks to move up.
Yeah. It's the economy of the NBA now. It's kind of interesting to see how it's evolved.
Yeah, but yeah, we're in the hotbed of Damian Lillard negotiations or trade talk or whatever. Again, I'm not gonna sit up here and say it's inevitable or it's conclusive that he's going to Miami because again, you just sometimes don't know how these things work. I would like for it to happen sooner rather than later, just so I
Right.
know who's getting shipped out. I mean, there was a report yesterday from Jake Fisher of Yahoo Sports that Miami has been telling free agents that they're not gonna they're gonna wait for this to settle before they sign
More people.
more people to the minimum. Like I think the one guy that he did mention was Malik Beasley. Like they
Yeah,
told Malik
now
Beasley apparently about they're gonna kind of hold off a little bit on that,
and
at
now
least for the most part,
he's since moved on to Milwaukee,
until this
sadly.
is settled. And yeah, he's since moved on to Milwaukee. Um, but
Oh,
I don't know.
I mean, the Heat have made some moves. Matt Thomas Bryant, good backup for Bam. I think obviously anything is better than Cody Zeller.
They have made some moves, and it's like I'm sure we're going to probably get into the thick and thin of like some of the moves that were made league wide, but the moves that Miami did make, like I like more and more now that I think about it. Like the Josh Richardson move. Again, we're day one of free agency. Here's also the thing I'll say about like minimum contracts. I mean, you're not going to see a lot of guys sign for the minimum day one of free agency because it's
Right.
like they think they're worth more, and then it comes down a little bit, and it's just like okay, like we'll sign a 1-year minimum or whatever. But like Josh Richardson, him coming back, like that's a good buy. Especially,
I think
I
it's
get
very
it. Heat
good.
fans are a little upset, myself included, about Gabe Vincent leaving to the Lakers, 3 years, $33 million. I thought that was a good contract for
He
Gabe.
deserved it, you know.
Max Strus in a
Sign
three-team
and
sign and
trade.
trade with San Antonio for signs with Cleveland for 4 for
Chetty
63.
Osman to San Antonio, I think.
Yeah, Chetty Osman and I think Lamar Stevens,
Yeah.
and then couple second rounders got sent back to Miami. But like 4 for 63, that didn't officially get
Right. Announced.
finished until Saturday.
Right.
But that was still like we kind of knew Max was going to be heading to Cleveland, or there was a lot of smoke with Indiana the day before free agency. But like that was a bummer for Heat fans. I get it. I understand it. I was in that same boat, at least to the same extent with Max or with Gabe, excuse me. But Josh Richardson, who I think probably had a better season than both of them last season.
Yeah. Knows the Heat
At least even
culture very well.
Yeah, even though he wasn't, I mean, his role was a little bit diminished with New Orleans after he got traded at the deadline. But
Right.
he was, I mean, I thought he was probably better than both of them, or at least he was like comparable.
Yeah. Both Gabe
with
and
San
Max.
Antonio.
Yeah.
Like he averaged 10 a game last year, 36.5% from deep. I mean, he's bounced around a little bit. He spent his first 4 years with Miami, or 3 years, 4 years.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, gets traded. He was actually one of the players traded in the Jimmy deal.
Right.
To Philly. He's bounced around a little bit. He was in Boston. I want to say I think he was in Dallas, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. Somewhere.
Yeah, like he's bounced around a little bit. He hasn't completely found his footing, but he's a player that knows the system well. He's 29 years old. He has another guy that just has a very good relationship with Bam. I mean, I know they were like best friends when he was here.
Yeah, he was very happy on social media when that news came through.
Yeah, 6'6", 6'10", 6'11" wingspan. Versatile defender, can guard 1 through 3. He's a 2.5 level scorer. I mean, he can get to the rim.
Yep.
He 37%, 38% catch and shoot shooter from deep.
That's fine.
And so it's like there's a world where he can be more productive than both Gabe Vincent and Max Strus next season, just given his role. I don't know if that will eventually be true, but like you lose those two guys, but you also get a guy again who's knocked down 36, 37, 38% from deep over these last several years, who's a good catch and shoot shooter from deep, who's a good defender, but I think better than both of them.
Oh, absolutely.
He's bigger, he's longer,
he's got a high motor,
stronger.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, I get it. He may not be able to create off the dribble incredibly well, which is something Miami does need, but neither Gabe or Max did that either. I mean, they weren't like they would show some off the dribble juice, like they would attack long closeouts and stuff like that. And Gabe was really good, like coming off screens, like pulling up. Like that was kind of like something that you like developed over his time in Miami.
Right.
But like a 2-year minimum for Josh Richardson
I
is like a
know.
damn good buy low
That's
move.
a steal.
And I don't even want to say it's a buy low move. It's just very good value.
I know.
And so it's like, I mean, shit, I'll take that all day. I like Josh Richardson. Josh Richardson, I think, is a fine player. I think he can. I don't think he's going to get back to the level where he was in 19, where he was averaging 17 a game,
right,
on a Miami team that wasn't that great. But I certainly think there's potential for him to be a 10, 11, 12 point per game scorer.
I mean, I was going to say, Matt, very quickly, I mean, assuming a Dame trade happens, Josh Richardson could easily be the starting 2 guard for the Heat.
Right. I mean,
very
easily.
easily.
And you want to see how that unfolds, but yeah, probably. I mean, there's certainly the possibility of that absolutely happening. Again, I guess it just depends on who leaves and who doesn't.
Right, the ins and outs.
But sure, I mean, I'm not going to sit there and complain. Whether I think Josh would complement Dame perfectly well.
Exactly.
But and then the Thomas Bryant move. I previously elsewhere I'd linked Thomas Bryant to Miami as someone that they could sign for the minimum. He does sign the 2-year minimum. He is someone where it's like I think he's more polished offensively than both Zeller and Dedmon were. I don't know if he'll use them I don't know if Spill will use him in the same role. I mean, he's not a bad screener or a bad roller. I mean,
he's got some outside shooting, right?
He showed very brief stints of that when he was in Washington. He didn't show it as much when he was in LA or in Denver. I mean, the thing with Bryant though is he's not good defensively.
That's true.
Positionally, there's sometimes some lackadaisical awareness. I mean, he's not big. And so, like, there's not a lot of rim protection. Not to say there was with Dedmon or Zeller either, because there frankly wasn't. But, like, there was a reason why as soon as he got to Denver, he just didn't play. And this Denver was also a team dealing with, like, DeAndre Jordan minutes. Like, so it's like they weren't in a good spot either way. And they kind of found their footing in the playoffs with Jeff Green playing the 5. Whenever Jokic wasn't on the floor. And so I don't know. Again, it's one of those things where it's like, just rotate every 6 months just to back up big.
Yep.
Like whether it's Dedmon, Zeller, whether it's Thomas Bryant, Orlando Robinson signed a standard contract over the weekend. And so it's like, regardless, just keep rotating him in and out. Like, I think he's 25. And so I think that also helps. I mean, Dedmon and Zeller were both in their, I think, low 30s.
Right.
Age-wise. And so there's still definitely some upside there. I don't know. I mean, the thing I would get worried about just from a schematic perspective is like in the minutes when Thomas Bryant and Kevin Love were on the floor together.
Right.
I think that could be a little bit of a disaster.
Could be problematic.
But hopefully they would have Jimmy, Josh Richardson, whomever make up for that. I don't know how they'll stagger that, but just for the minimum though.
Doesn't hurt. It's a good flyer.
It's not a shitty signing for the minimum. So it's like, I'll take it. Like Thomas Bryant's definitely a player who can outplay being a minimum player. I mean, again, not a bad offensive rebounder, not a terrible like screen and roll guy. He has good touch within 10 feet of the basket. Like, there's definitely upside. Again, I think he's more polished offensively than Miami's 2 previous backup 5s, or at least 3 previous backup 5s if you want to count Orlando Robinson in there, because he did get minutes when Dedmon wasn't playing well last year. But regardless, I still think there is like some upside there. So it's like, again, for the minimum, sure,
let's do it.
Sure, I think it's a fine add. I mean, again, you got to fill out your roster somehow. You're not going to bat 1,000 with all this, but I think those are 2 fine signings. I mean, I'm especially higher on Josh, but
I'm with you.
Awesome, go for it. I mean, we could probably talk about some stuff that's happened league wide. What's caught your eye.
I mean, obviously, I did manifest it last week. I spoke it into existence. Dante DiVincenzo signing with the Knicks, and obviously, we also saw Obi Toppin getting shipped off to Indiana for 2 second-round picks. I don't love it, but again, this is a guy in Obi who didn't want to be here. Obviously, some pretty disparaging sound bites came out in the playoffs against Miami. There was a bit of a locker room confrontation between him and Tom Thibodeau. And again, 2 second-round picks. I think the Knicks have shown they are able to hit in the second round every now and again. So it's not the worst deal in the world. I don't know what they're going to do with Jacob Top and his brother now. I guess he'll just be on their summer league team, and that's that. But for Toppin, that's pretty much my 2 cents. I love DiVincenzo. Immediately we saw Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson taking to social media and putting some funny videos up and some very excited feelings there over at MSG. And I guess that means Josh Hart is going to be playing the Obi Toppin minutes as a backup 4, which will be interesting. Obviously, Josh Hart is considerably shorter than Obi Toppin was in terms of size and athleticism, but again, DiVincenzo clearly worth more than, I guess it was like a $9.6 million player option with the Warriors. I think
It was 4.
cashing in, or $4 million. I mean,
Yeah,
cashing in,
because he signed the biannual last season.
right?
Or no, he signed the taxpayer.
Yeah,
And
and
so it was 4. Yeah.
I think cashing in at 4 years, $50 million is great. I think he was close to 40% from three last year. Obviously, you just bring another Villanova guy in; it helps with the locker room. Immediately, I think he'll go off to a fast start, and I think he is a play style that Knicks fans will love. Coming off the bench, creating some offense, and that's definitely something they needed last season. Obviously, you saw against Miami, their shot making slowed down. Miami was really able to slow down their offense, and there wasn't many players who could really pick their spots and have that shooting touch other than Jalen Brunson. And I think DiVincenzo will provide that in brief moments off the bench.
Yeah, I mean, 4 for 50. I mean, you did have to use your mid-level on it,
right?
And so the Knicks will be hard capped. I'm sorry for the lack of future flexibility. But regardless, I still think this is a good signing. Again, it wasn't even just the Miami series, like the Cleveland series. The Knicks weren't making shots. They were just thankful that the Cavs were missing more shots.
Right.
But no, I think this is a good 3-and-D addition. I mean, there's some off the dribble juice. There's some playmaking that DiVincenzo could offer as kind of like a secondary skill set, but specifically his spot up shooting. I don't know what his exact numbers are, but probably 35, 36, 37% from deep. I mean, he's another Tibbs-like player that will just do the dirty. I was gonna say dirty shit. Not like he's not a dirty player.
No, but
do the dirty work.
He'll get into the dirty areas. I mean,
obviously, he's a good glue guy. I mean, he did slow it down a little bit in that Lakers series with the Warriors, but I still think he was an impactful player, at least given his salary throughout the season for Golden State, especially in the times that Steph and or Clay were injured. I think he was an important player for them. And Obi Toppin was one of those guys that Miami was just daring to shoot.
Yeah.
We're going to leave you open, make shots. And it felt like Miami was doing that for practically everybody but Brunson. And even at times they would play off Brunson and kind of make him they would kind of make him I mean, again, the theory, I talked about this with you, but over that Heat Knicks series, and Miami was trying to force them to make the tough ones. And it's you got to make these shots. I mean,
only Brunson can make them. That was the thing.
A couple games, New York did make them. There were others that they didn't, but Miami would make them make the tough ones, especially from outside of 10 feet, 10, 15 feet. And so DiVincenzo is just another outlet for Brunson to kind of make that happen, to kind of capitalize on those situations. And I think it's a good sign. I mean, you called it on the head. I think 50 for him is a good contract.
I think it's very fair value. And what is he, 26, 27 right now?
26, I believe.
Yeah, so that's fine. I'm not going to complain at all.
No, and I don't think you should. Again, the Villanova connection, that's just a cool subplot.
I mean, Jay Wright has taught those guys high basketball IQ, high motor, and Hart, Brunson, and DiVincenzo have all shown that. So I'm very excited to see how that goes.
He's another guy that can complement Brunson defensively.
You can start him at the 2.
I don't know what that means for Hart's role allocation on that end of the floor, whether he will be guarding the team's best player, at least their best perimeter player, how he's going to be able to guard up against 3s and 4s if that's ultimately the case.
That's true. The Knicks' size is a bit of a question mark now. You got other than Randall Robinson and Isaiah Hartenstein, you don't really have that size, especially when it comes to rebounding, and that's something that killed the Knicks.
Well, you still have
Miami's offensive rebounding was spectacular against the Knicks.
At least you still have Robinson and Hartenstein, though.
Yeah,
those guys were menacing.
Maybe Agent Hartenstein could get on the phone with Paul George, and we could go from there. But I digress.
But yeah, no, I think that's a good move. I mean, the Toppin thing is, I think for Toppin at least, it was just to relieve salary,
right?
And just kind of lower their. I don't think the Knicks are in the tax. I don't remember if they are.
I mean, it's going to have to come down to Fournier now.
Yeah, they're close to it, and so just to offer some more flexibility. I mean, yeah, Fournier, if they can at least find a suitor to that, you might have to attach an asset or two to make that happen. Again, I don't know what his market looks like at this stage of his career.
And also, I guess Emmanuel quickly has one more year, but he's going to want to get a payday pretty soon.
Yeah. I think is he extension eligible now, or is that next season?
He might be extension eligible. I mean, I've heard rumors that he wants I believe he wants 9 figures in his extension, and I love the guy. He was a 6 Man of the Year finalist. I would not go that far to bring back Emmanuel quickly. I give him 4 for $90 in a heartbeat. I think he's worth that. I'd give him 4 years, $90 million, but I really wouldn't push the envelope.
I mean, you would be looking at 2.5 per difference though, if you go 4 for 100.
That's true.
Hypothetically.
Yes.
Hypothetically.
I mean, we shall see. There's still a lot to figure out in Knicks land, but so far I'm happy with the addition of DiVincenzo. And obviously, I feel bad for Obi Toppin. He was a Westchester guy. It seemed like he really could have been a hometown hero for the Knicks, but he's going to do well in Indiana. I have a feeling Tyrese Halliburton and him will be a very fun alley-oop potential combination. So I'll be keeping an eye on that.
And he complements, to an extent, Jarris Walker.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think he's going to get a little more run there than he would in New York, but there's I don't even want to say it's like a roster crunch. There's just a lot. Feels like there's 20 players on the Pacers.
Yeah, they do have. I was thinking about that. I was falling asleep last night. I was thinking they got Halliburton, they got Buddy Hield, they got Benedict, they got Miles Turner, they got Jarris Walker. Now they got Obi. It's going to be a bit of a
Shepherd.
tough. I mean, Rick Carlisle's going to have to. He's got his work cut out for him.
They just signed Bruce Brown 2 for 45.
Yeah, they got Bruce Brown. It's gonna be a bit of a crowded rotation.
Yeah, I mean, did you mention Miles Turner already?
Yeah, and then they've got a lot of minutes and even more guys that want minutes.
Yeah, they had to offload Duarte, who.
Yeah, I thought that's a very good pickup for Sacramento.
I believe he was a lottery pick a couple of years ago.
I thought he was in the running for Rookie of the Year not too long ago.
He was, but again,
good 3-level scorer.
Role diminished a little bit.
Yeah.
I think with the insertion of Mather, I mean, they did sign, or they were in the room again. They were in rumors for signing Strus, and it was just wait, there's so much shit there already.
They've got a lot.
If you want to give 3 for 48 for Max Strus, go ahead.
I think 2 and 45 for Bruce Brown is a much better deal.
Yeah. But what else is we could probably get into some winners and losers, or who's a personal winner for you outside of what we already talked about.
I mean,
just within the NBA landscape.
I gotta say, Matt, I don't know how they keep pulling this off, but the Phoenix Suns are a winner in my book.
Okay.
They have fleshed out their roster very well. I mean, obviously, we brought it up last week. I think whoever picked up Keita Bates-Diop got a very good player, and I think he fits in that Phoenix Suns system perfectly. I mean, he'll probably be either the 3 or the 4 between him and Kevin Durant. And I think that's great. He'll provide some spacing. He's a pretty long defender, and I think obviously we don't know what's happening with DeAndre Ayton. It seems like he'll at least stay one more year with the Suns, but. You get him, you get Yuta and Hobby. I mean, you got Campaign off the bench. I'm trying to think of who else they've got. I mean, they got some steals. Josh Okogie's coming back.
Chimeze Metu.
They got some good pickups.
Damian Lillard, who they re-signed. I mean, the none other than the most recent signing, Eric Gordon.
Eric Gordon, I don't know how they do it. James Jones, look, man, you threw all your first round picks out the window, all your second round picks out the window for that matter, and
He
now you
hates the
got
draft.
and now they still got these guys coming for cheap, and I'll give them credit.
No, another one. I'm looking at it right here. One that I forgot. Just looking at their cap sheet. Drew Eubanks.
Yeah, Drew Eubanks, like
who is like a sneaky, like solid backup big. I mean, I
yeah,
know again, he's kind of their Jock Landale replacement.
right.
We can talk about Houston in a little bit.
Yes. Talk about
He's
losers in free agency.
At least for their appropriation of cap dollars, I think Drew Eubanks for a 2-year, I believe a 2-year minimum, is a
good
deal.
business.
It's a good deal. Especially like he's a sneaky good shot blocking big, like rim protector, fairly good rebounder, kind of a good role guy.
Having him in that Nuggets series could have potentially helped a lot.
Yeah, space the floor a little bit. Like I mean, I know Jock was pretty good in that.
Yeah, he did.
When
he did get in the middle of things.
He was pretty good in that in the playoffs. And I like Jock coming out of St. Mary's.
Yeah.
But
good for him to get some money.
But regardless, I mean, I did like the Bates Diop signing. I did like the Chimeze Met too, kind of like that. He just adds additional cutting. I mean, they re-signed Josh Okogie. I mean, we've seen what he can do on the defensive end of the floor, at least at the point of attack. Yuta Watanabe, who had good chemistry with Kevin Durant last year in Brooklyn.
Great shooting year.
Yeah, very good catch and shoot shooter, especially from the corners. Felt like there was a time when, like the beginning of last season, for the first couple of months, where he just wasn't missing a three.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll tell you, I'm a Knicks fan, Matt, but when he was on the Nets, I was dangerously close to getting a Yuta Watanabe Nets jersey. Which I like the guy. Like he was awesome for them this past year.
Yeah, he was, and I especially like I thought he was also like he wasn't terrible when he was in Toronto.
He showed obviously.
I know he got bodied by Anthony.
Yes,
Edwards,
that was what he was previously known for across the NBA community. But he had a very good year. Obviously, I thought he would have cashed out a little bit better, but he'll play for a contending team in Phoenix.
What's another one of your winners? I guess at least through these first few days.
I mean, I'll have to say I made a video about it too, but I think Rob Pelinka really stole the show. Rob Pelinka's cooking, people. You got to get ready. He's in the kitchen. Gabe Vincent, I think he could very easily be the starting point guard over D'Angelo Russell.
Mm-hmm.
I think D'Lo is kind of more suited as a six-man, kind of based on what we've seen, as streaky of an offensive player as he is. I think bringing him back is also a good move. Give him another chance after he flamed out pretty poorly in the playoffs. But, I mean, you bring back, I forget what Jared Vanderbilt came back on, but I know he'll be back in the fold.
His contract was guaranteed.
Oh, it was, okay.
Or it was either a team option or it was a partially / non-guaranteed deal. I can't remember which one.
Him coming back is great.
But he was one that they officially. I think it was a guarantee. I think they guaranteed his contract, and it was for cheap anyways. And so
you think about that. You think about Rui coming back, Austin Reeves. I think it's going to be an underpay in a couple of years. Based on his trajectory, if he keeps this up as the Lakers' number 3 option, basically behind Bron and AD. I mean, you look at, I just talked about Vincent. I think Cam Reddish is a good gamble in this time in his career. I've always been a fan of him before he even came to the Knicks. Just a very long guy, has shown some offensive potential, but at least as a body, as a small ball 4 on defense, I think he could do very well with Bron and AD. And I mean, who else did they? Oh, Jackson Hayes. I think that's a very smart pickup. I think obviously as an athlete, he shows us a lot of things. I think he can do some very good things off the bench, especially in the non-AD minutes. I mean, I got to tip my hat to Rob Pelinka because Lakers fans give him crap all the time, but he had yet another very good, free agency period.
Taurean Prince.
I mean, I think that's a great wing.
I mean, he can knock down 38-39% of his shots. I mean, he's the type of player that would fit next to Bron defensively, I believe. He can be a
Lakers loaded up. That's all
switchable kind of wing, and he signed for I think the biannual, and so it's not like $4.5 million. And so it was a fairly cheap, I think, deal for him. They also they brought back Rui, 3 for $51.
Great deal.
I mean, I don't want to say at least in my opinion, like it felt like it was predicated on what he did in the playoffs.
That's true. He didn't have
but he was good for them, and I do think he's gonna. he's going to continue his improvement as a player.
And I think the most important thing, obviously, we know Bron is going to be in his 21st year in the league. AD has a very strong reputation as an injury-prone player. These guys could all fill in very easily in the regular season and make some very meaningful contributions to this team.
I think Gabe is one. I mean, again, that's because I've watched Gabe so much. I've watched his growth in Miami over these last several years. I think he's he's a perfect player to play next to Bron. I mean, he could play off ball. He doesn't have to have the
point of attack defense. Like, yeah,
here's my favorite way to describe Gabe. He's a pain in the ass to deal with on the defensive end. He might be 6'3", and like you can go back to like the Knicks series. Like, yeah, Jalen Brunson did give him his at certain points, especially towards the end of that
made
series.
It hard on
like,
JB sometimes.
Gabe isn't going to make it easy on you.
Yep.
And that's the thing. Like you're going to have to earn whatever you get defensively, at least as a guard with Gabe on you. I mean, again, I know he's a little bit undersized at 6'3". I mean, he does have like a 6'7", 6'8" wingspan. He's strong as shit for someone of his size. I mean, he's not going to give you 2 inches. He's not going to give you an inch. So like he's a pain in the ass to deal with, and he's kind of like the best way I could describe him. He's Schroeder with a more polished offensive game, because I know that the Lakers did lose Schroeder 2 years 26 in Toronto. But like Schroeder is another one of those guys at times where he could be a pain in the ass defensively. Or at least kind of get up in your jersey a little bit. He's gonna get up under you. And Gabe does that same thing, but I think Gabe is a more polished offensive player. Albeit he's not. The thing with Gabe is he's not super efficient, and like that's gonna be a question. And I understand that question. Whether it's like I think he is a better spot up shooter than people give him credit for.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bron's gonna give him. Obviously, Bron's one of the best passers in the league, so he's gonna get some good looks.
Yeah, so like finishing around the rim has been a little bit of a trouble for Gabe. I mean, I know he has a nice he has a nice floater. At least that's something that he's developed over time. He's a pretty good shooter, whether it's a pull-up shooter, whether it's from beyond the arc or from the mid-range. And so I think all of those elements will help. And I think he's just a more polished offensive player than Schroeder is at this point of his career. And I know it was always weird to me. There was subsequent reporting after the signing got reported that Miami didn't go above 3 for 24 for Gabe. And to me, that was just a little bit weird, because I think you would be paying him to be your starting point guard. And I think 11 per for being a starting point guard is more than fair value. I know the situation that Miami is in with the tax. And so I don't think that they're going to be a second apron team anyways. And so I guess if you want to kind of alleviate yourself from that, cool, awesome. But I still thought not going above 3 for 24 for Gabe, or at least 8 per, was just a little bit weird to me.
I mean, yeah.
Like you said, I can rationalize it more now with like, again, now that Dame has requested a trade and wants.
Yeah, it just puts more eggs in that basket is the only thing.
Just put more eggs in that basket. And like after the signing was made, I was like, okay, now Miami still has to develop. Again, this was at the time assuming that Dame, again, he hasn't requested a trade yet. Right. Whether he was going to or not, like Miami has one point guard on the roster with Kyle Lowry, he's making $29.7 million. And just the indication that he's likely going to get moved, or at least there's a greater chance than not that he gets moved. So it's like, okay, Jamari Bouye, who I'm a fan of, is like the next up in the Heat pipeline in terms of like Heat point guards. Well, I still think Gabe was further along the track of Jamari is right now, when Gabe was officially getting like rotation minutes, and he was like getting eventually at least starters minutes. I mean, Jamari like very briefly played with the squad last year during like a time in the middle of the season where Heat players were injured and they just needed bodies. But like, I think that you still have to develop these guys. You can't just throw them in the fire and just be like, figure it out. Especially when you're on a team like the Miami Heat and you're contending for an NBA title. And so it's like, that was a little bit like, again, once that all was released, I was like, what? Like, it just felt a little crazy to me. And it sucked, because it's like the indications beforehand were that Gabe and Miami wanted to resign.
Right.
And I mean, understandably so. And I know I'm going off on like a tangent here, but I think it's a perfect like fit next to Bron. Again, I think he provides a good point of attack defense. I think he, again, albeit some of the inefficiencies problems that he's had throughout his careers, whether it's from deep or inside the arc or at the rim or whatever, I think he's developed over time, and I think he could be definitely an impactful player and worthwhile to what the Lakers are doing over in Southern California. And so I think like D'Angelo Russell, I mean, that one was a little bit weird to me.
At least it's flexible. It provides a lot of flexibility.
Like that is a contract that you could move in a year from now if you want to. As kind of like a salary filler, if that's something that the Lakers have any perceived interest in. Again, we don't know what Bron's going to do, whether it comes to like playing with the Sun or whatever. If the Sun is a one and done player at USC, I like the Reeves 456, especially since that they got him on his early bird rights before another team could throw some bloated offer sheet at him. I mean, a team would have had to offer the full 4 for 102 or whatever the number was for the max offer sheet that a team could have had with with the arenas provision. Then like a team would have had at least 25 million cap space. I don't think there's not many teams out there, again, like outside of like Houston, who would have done that. But a team could have still offered like 4 for 70 or 4 for 80. So like before that got messy, the Lakers were able to secure him with his early bird rights. And so
I think it's good value.
So I think like 4 for 56 for Reeves, I agree with you. I think he could definitely outplay that contract if that push comes to shove. Again, I like the Taurean Prince deal. They got him on the biannual. Cam Reddish is a good buy low, even though he has bounced around the league a little bit.
Right.
Jared Vanderbilt guaranteeing that contract, where it was like for I think like 4 million, 5 million, whatever it was. I think, yeah, he had some problems offensively, and you saw that a little bit in the playoffs. But I still think he's a very impactful kind of glue guy that you could have, and
his versatility on defense is so understated.
Yeah, and he's useful in that respect. They're still looking for a backup big.
Yes.
I think they have. When I was looking at it, I think they have 13 guys that you have to get to 14. I don't know if they're going to use that that final minimum spot for a backup big. I don't know if they're going to do that. The buyout market in March, whoever is out there at the time. But I know they still do need size. That's something, even though they did sign Jackson Hayes, I think you still need additional.
Need another big man in there. I agrei. Yeah, losing Bamba.
They didn't. I think they declined his guarantee. I think it was a non-guaranteed deal, and they declined that. And then it's also they weren't able to get anything from like the Malik Beasley, who was making like 15 million or 16 million, whatever it was. But regardless, I do like the moves that they made. What's a third team that you were looking at? Or like a third winner if you could find one. And then we could go into some losers before we close this out.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of another winner, I mean, I'm trying to think. Obviously, I mean, I don't want to stick in the West Coast, but I do think, obviously, you could say what you want about Draymond Green, but I think it is important that the Warriors brought him back. You can't really put a price on what he brings to that locker room in terms of the leadership and the chemistry. And, I mean, obviously, the Warriors are pretty much hard capped after picking up Chris Paul and signing Draymond back. But I'm trying to think of who else they got. I think they got some good kind of supporting pieces, right?
They got Podziemski in the draft.
Oh, right.
They also got Huchevino in the draft. Or not Huchevino. They got Trace Jackson Davis, his teammate, his former college teammate, in the draft.
Corey Joseph and Mike Dunleavy. Or no, Mike Dunleavy's their GM. They got Corey Joseph.
It's their GM.
I think Corey Joseph is a good...
I mean, he was a new addition from Bob Myers, but...
Yeah. But I think I don't hate the pickup of Corey Joseph. Obviously, he's not really the player he used to be, but he's a steady hand. You kind of know what you're going to get out of him, especially if Steph or Chris Paul get injured. He could easily fill in as a backup point guard. I think that's true. He is pretty old, but
just their entire team. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I mean, outside of you want to keep Steph, Clay, and Dre. That's obvious, but again, I'm still just confused with Chris Paul.
I know. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt now. Obviously, we know that Chris Paul has not always loved Steph Curry and Steve Kerr in the past, but I think they'll find a way. Obviously, I saw on Draymond's podcast he had some pretty I'd say some pretty hot takes on DeAndre Ayton and saying that he looked like a bust before Chris Paul walked through the door. And I'd have to look at his numbers from his rookie year and before CP came in there, but I like what he could potentially bring off the bench at this point in his career as a pick his spots in the mid range. He doesn't. The Warriors didn't really have that kind of versatility on offense, like Draymond said. Once the Lakers kind of neutralized their main source of offense, there wasn't really much they could do
Right.
afterwards. But I think losing DiVincenzo does hurt. But again, I'm trying to think of other winners.
I can
I
give you
mean,
one winner.
yeah, please. I'm kind of drawing a
Everyone who
blank.
signed with the Houston Rockets because they
Yes,
got the bag.
they got the bag.
They got the
Yes,
absolute bag. I mean, the Rockets themselves,
not a winner.
maybe not a clear winner, but people who signed with Houston very much are
Tax
winners
free,
of this.
lots of money, beautiful business for them. Congratulations to them and their agents.
Yeah, like Fred VanVleet, 3 for 128.5.
Dylan Brooks.
Dylan Brooks, 4 for 80. Jock Londale, 4 for 32. By the way, I called the Dylan Brooks thing. I'm just going to pat myself on the back for that.
Again, I take credit for DiVincenzo, and I give you all the credit in the world for manifesting Dylan Brooks for the Rockets.
Very funny how that actually, they actually did overpay for him, even though I do think Dylan Brooks has become underrated in what he could provide to an NBA basketball team. Again, amid all the antics.
Right.
Jeff Green got $6 million. That's cool.
Good for him.
Coming
He got
off
a
the
ring.
ship. Usually you'd expect him to be a guy that signs for the minimum. Well, guess what? He's making practically twice that. Maybe actually, not 3 times that, but nevertheless, I mean, they were just the thing with Houston is they had to get to a salary floor. It was 122.4, but I think they're above that now, way above that.
Yeah, they've kind of thrown all their flexibility away.
If I'm guessing, they're probably good 10 to 15 million. I don't know exactly, especially I'm counting the rookie contracts with the men and Cam Whitmore, but I don't think they had to give. Who are they bidding against for Dylan Brooks for 4 for 80? That's my question. Who are they bidding against for? I mean, I guess they're bidding a little bit against Toronto for VanVleet, and I do like VanVleet. I think he's a good player. I think he's someone who fits with that organization.
Yeah.
He kind of gives him that adult-ish in the room. He could play off the ball. He's a guy who can table set an offense along with Amen Thompson and kind of be that mentor for him, even though they're probably 2 a little different players in that,
right?
In some respects, at least. But he could be a good mentor from a good leader for that organization, a team who needs leadership, especially with Ime kind of being that professor that will smack the ruler on the table if you fuck up.
Yep.
But no, good for all the Houston players who were able to get that bag. A couple others I want to point out, Milwaukee.
Yeah.
They were able to bring back Middleton and Brook Lopez. And I know that at least for the latter portion of that was a contentious topic about would a team like the Rockets offer just some bloated contract for Brook Lopez.
Yeah.
And there were plenty of questions heading into the offseason about whether they would be able to retain either of those 2 players. I mean, I know Middleton opted out. He opted out with a $40 million player option. And it's when someone does that, I get a little suspicious of okay, maybe he's going to sign back for less.
And he did.
And he did sign back for a little, at least on an average annual value. It was 3 for
102, 103.
Yeah, 3 for 102. And then Brook Lopez signs 2 for 48. But I think that's just another again, and I know it's not, you're not bringing in a shit ton of new guys, but it's just a couple.
Malik Beasley, obviously, I think just by being with the Lakers, I think it might have been a mental thing, and the fans are really on him when he started to underperform. And I think being in Milwaukee, obviously the fan environment and social media is definitely much more welcoming than the Lakers fans could be at times.
What are some other winners? I mean,
I know James Herrick is not the biggest fan of the Detroit Pistons free agency.
Eaton salary.
He said, "What's his name? What is Troy Weaver cooking?"
Yeah, what is Troy Weaver cooking?
I giggled.
No, yeah, they're eating a bunch of salary, and again, I think they're another team that had to get to the salary floor. I don't know how far they're at from that point now.
Right.
I'm just looking on Spot Rack just to see like the deals that
Yeah, I'm
happen.
like drawing a blank. I mean, the Nets
I'm
brought
just
back.
trying. I mean, like, yeah, they're. Oh, whoops, that's the wrong page. Like, I thought it was interesting that Dallas got Kyrie 3 for 126. I mean, I know you're probably again they have the bird rights on him. I don't know if he was going to get money elsewhere, but
Right.
and they also didn't give him the full like 4 years or 5 years that they could have given him. Instead, they
Right.
just go for 3. So I thought that was interesting. Again, Cleveland getting Georges Niang and Max Strus,
Philly
two
getting
shooters they
Patrick
need shooting.
Beverly.
I mean, outside of what we already talked about, I like what Indiana did bringing in Bruce Brown. I think he's like kind of like a perfect fit for what they can do
Yeah.
there. The Bulls were a little
I
interesting,
was gonna say
bringing
good
back Kobe
trade.
White 3 for 33, and then I don't hate Javon Carter 3 for 20. I know some people might look at that as like an overpay, but I don't hate that. If I'm being
3
completely
years, like
honest, I
it's
like
not gonna
Javon
kill
Carter.
him. Yeah. I mean,
Um,
Vucevic though, I would not re-sign him.
that one was a 3 for 60, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
And I don't think 3 for 60 is necessarily terrible, but it's the core that you're locking into. I think is like the
Exactly.
negative
We've
part of
seen
it.
enough out of Vucevic on the Bulls to kind of say like, is he really the answer? And obviously, he's just not the player that they got from Orlando. They thought he'd be the missing piece alongside Zach and DeMar, and it just hasn't been that. But maybe, like you said, maybe they're going to run it back with this group again. Obviously, at the really
Looks like
reinforcing the point guard position, which will be
Mhm.
interesting. I think Torrey Craig is a good wing, maybe, a backup for Pat
Yeah.
Williams, assuming he's healthy as a small ball 4. So we'll have to see how it goes.
And I think people forget that Chicago was one of the best defenses in the second half of the season. And
Yeah,
Javon
I
Carter,
mean,
at least at the point of attack, is like I don't want to say Lonzo replacement because they have 2 different skill sets, but at least on the defensive end, Javon Carter's, for lack of better word, a dog.
yeah,
Like he's very good defensively, and he makes those energy hustle plays that I think can definitely help Chicago. Again, without Lonzo Ball, who's expected to miss the entire year after an unfortunate situation.
hoping he recovers soon. Such a terrible story.
Yeah.
I mean, I gotta say, Matt, we all forget. I mean, the Bulls were dangerously close to denying the Miami Heat their run to the finals.
I'm not forgetting that. They were 3 minutes away. They were like literally 3 minutes away from beating Miami and knocking them out of the playoffs. And
That would have
this crazy final story from never happening.
unbelievable. That's the
But
NBA though. That's just how the beauty of the NBA right there.
but that's like such a crazy what's the word I'm looking for? That's
I
such a
know.
crazy like
What if?
I don't think Chicago makes the finals. I don't even know if they get past Milwaukee if that happens. And it's just such a big what if. Like, what if Chicago actually beat Miami?
Would Milwaukee make it to the finals then?
Would Milwaukee? Yeah, I can't even talk. Would Milwaukee make it to the finals?
Well, the Knicks make it. I'm kidding. The Knicks wouldn't beat Milwaukee.
The Knicks. Listen, man. Who the hell knows?
Exactly.
I mean, there's a couple deals that I liked individually. Like I know Celtics fans might not. I don't know if they want to hear this or not, but I do like the O'Shea Brissett signing to the minimum 2-year deal.
Good piece off the bench.
I mean, he's not. The thing with O'Shea is, I mean, the shot's still coming along. I think he was like just a hair above 30% last year from deep. I liked watching him in Indiana because he is kind of that hustle glue guy. Like he will make the hustle plays. Like he's a good offensive rebounder. He's a good defender. He can switch multiple positions. Again, I think he's a good cutter, but the shot is still coming along with him. And I think that's like a contingent point, but like,
yeah,
I think Boston has enough shooting to where you can cover that up a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think he could be like a good screen and roll, like impactful, kind of just comes in for 10 to 15 minutes and just F's shit up. You know what I'm saying? A guy who can just be like, again, you're not asking him to do a lot. I mean, he's kind of like And I know Grant's in restricted free agency right now. I don't know if he's going to be brought back or
Right.
whatnot. I mean, I know like Dallas has been a team rumored for him. Charlotte is too. Like teams that I don't know, they could offer the mid-level for him. I don't know if Boston will match that. I'm guessing they will, but if he doesn't come back, he can they're not the same player, but he can kind of be that replacement to some extent.
I
Um,
agree.
but I do like that O'Shea signing. It's a little under the radar. I know the Dennis Smith Jr. signing in Brooklyn.
Brooklyn.
Again, we talked about him a little bit last week. Him and Lonnie Walker both going to Brooklyn. I think just those are just two decent, like
Quality
under the
pieces.
radar signings for cheap. I mean, I believe they both signed for the minimum, but
Yeah.
like they're just two guys who could be impactful and who could. Again, it might not be for an entire season deal, but like they can both be impactful players at certain points in the season. Another one that happened yesterday regarding Boston is Delano Banton. I know he was he was a little pushed out of Toronto to some extent. They didn't offer him a qualifying offer, and so he became an unrestricted free agent. He signs for the minimum. He's a guy who's a very, very good cutter. And I mean, he's a 6'9" point guard practically. I mean, he's good defensively. He's a guy that's very good in transition, who can kind of be like that rebound grab and go guy if you need that. Again, I don't know what his role will be in Boston. I'm guessing he'll be kind of like an end of the bench guy. I don't know if he'll crack a rotation, but
Right.
again, as a guy who can assure you depth and some sort of role, if you need him to, like, again, insert him for 10, 15, 20 minutes a night, whether it's injuries or whatever the case may be, I think he could definitely be a guy that can come in and
Absolutely.
uh, a, impact a team. For at least, again, we're talking about like guys who are signing for the minimum who could be like who are cheap guys. Like this is
Yeah.
not like we're not expecting them to come in and put like all-star level production. I mean, great, awesome if they can, but these are guys who I think can come in and like impact.
Yeah.
Um,
Jump off the screen to some people.
yeah, I think Bant can definitely come in and jump off
Yep.
like a screen. If he could, he's not a bad distributor at all. Like again, he's the guy who can play off the ball for Jason or Jalen.
Yeah.
Same with O'Shea. He can come in and rebound. He can come in and again, the shooting for him is still but again, this just complements everything else that Boston has and what Boston can do. And again, they're just adding more length, and I think that could, when in terms of like you're trying to fill gaps and you're trying to close gaps, at least on the defensive end, you get hands and passing lanes. Banton's someone who can do that, and he's 6'9" with like a 7-foot plus wingspan, and so I think he can impact in some respect. I mean, we already mentioned Josh Richardson from Miami, who I like. I mean, we already mentioned Eric Gordon.
Yeah.
Let me see if some other ones. I
I
mean,
mean,
the Jalen McDaniels one, I kind of
yeah.
like, even though he does fit a lot of what Toronto already has, at least in terms of like a length and positional fit. But as another guy who didn't have much of a role when he was in Philly, I like what he can do defensively. Again, he's just another switchable guy. I don't know I don't think they're going to, but if you trade like a Pascal,
Yeah. I
you
know.
trade like you get just someone and kind of play that role again. Two totally different caliber of players, two totally different players, at least just in general. But someone who could just again fill in those gaps and provide depth when you need it to be. I mean,
Yeah.
another signing that I like from like a shooting perspective is Dallas or Seth Curry to Dallas. I mean,
Yep.
he reunites with Luke. I mean, it's not that Dallas needed more offense, but it's just another guy that can space the floor, help make things easier a little bit for Luka. And so those are just some of the individual deals I like. Let me see if there's any other ones. I mean, Trey Jones, 2 for
Yeah.
20 for San Antonio, I thought was a good deal. What are some others? Just scrolling up here because I can't remember all this shit.
Well, I know there's so much, so much.
DeAndre Jordan. No, I'm just kidding. We already mentioned Utah. Those are some ones that I can just think. Jay Crowder for the minimum. That's funny that he signed with back with Milwaukee after being very mad at them for how he was played in the playoffs. Although, albeit
Oh, the irony, yeah. That's your new coach.
I mean, Cam Johnson bringing him back, I thought after the Joe Harris deal, after they offloaded salary and built that trade exception. Not that, I mean, Cam Johnson doesn't fit into that trade exception. Obviously, he was a free agent, but just it afforded them the flexibility to bring him back. I mean, I think that's to the extent of it. I mean, Herb Jones, I thought it was really funny the reaction of him opting out of such a low, I think, player option. Or no, it was his team option was declined. We're all like, what? And it was for like incredibly cheap, but then he signs again a 4 for 56 and all for naught. And then again, when something like that happens, you can kind of see like, wait, are they thinking about bringing him back? And I think it was reported at the time that they were working out a long-term deal. And
good for him.
What are some other ones before we close out here? I think that's it.
Yeah, I mean,
just some ones that pop out. I mean, there'll probably be more that happens over the next week or so.
Yeah,
at least to a smaller scale. Maybe Dame's traded. I don't know.
Yeah, we've still got a lot of dominoes that have yet to fall in the NBA. But again, Matt, all I've got to say in my closing thoughts is those damn Yankees, man.
Harrison Bader,
Aaron Hicks return to Yankee Stadium.
I can't remember who asked him the question last night, but it was someone asked Bader post game. He was just like, "What told you to like you bunt on the first pitch, or at least you attempt to bunt on the first pitch, but don't bunt on the third pitch?" And he's like, "Yeah, no, it was the manager." I think it was the manager that did that. So that was a funny.
He completely tricked Cano into throwing that changeup over the plate.
Yeah, was it a changeup or was
whatever,
like slider, whatever,
some curveball, like some high up curveball,
up and in. He
81 miles per hour. He just smacked that into the left field seats.
And I mean, dude, they were down 3-0, the back-to-back homers from Volpe and Higgy. It was like,
dude,
okay.
I was about to say Volpe is. I got to apologize to Volpe because ever since that chicken parm, he is starting to turn it on.
I was looking at it this morning. Over his last, I think, 18 games, he's hitting it was like a 140 OPS.
375, 379 average or something like that.
While I'm thinking about it, I'm gonna look this up on the fly. But he's like over his last 8 games, he's hitting like 500.
Yeah.
Just so absurd. I mean,
he's been great.
The thing with him is like they talked about it a little bit on the broadcast, but he changed his swing a little bit, or at least he's
right, the mechanics.
And he's not stepping in the bucket. Like he's keeping that hip closed a little bit more, and that's helping him at least get pitches on the outer third of the plate, which has definitely helped him.
Yeah, that was his problem.
Because he was flailing at least for the first however many games, and it's like that happens to players, like
especially rookies. Yeah.
And it's like that's something you got. I mean, dude, it could happen to a 10-year-old veteran, him stepping in the bucket, and just like because it's such, you're doing it over and over again, and it just becomes a bad habit and something that you gotta. I think fix. He changed his swing a little bit. I'm looking up.
I mean, you said 10-year veterans, man. I think the same thing kind of is happening with DJ. They're trying to fix his swing also.
Yeah, he's been in like just a rough patch this entire year, and it's been like, yeah, he's been one where it's like, holy shit, like.
It's hard to watch.
Think about where he was in 19, and now 5 seasons later.
During COVID, he became the first player to ever win the batting title in both the National League and the American League, and now 3 years later.
Yeah, over his last 18 games, 379, 446, 603. That's a 150 OPS. Only 8 extra base hits, 4 RBIs. But he's just racking up hits, and he's getting on base at a 45% clip.
And dude, I completely forgot. Domingo Germán threw a perfect game last week.
Dude, it felt like it happened such a long time ago.
I know. Like
that's a good point. Why did it take
I know.
so long
I just completely forget. It's like you said. It just feels like years ago already.
Oh my goodness, man!
The Yankees
NBA drinks so much of my life.
Exactly. I'm just completely laser focused on the NBA and NHL, and I'm like, oh, Domingo Germán threw the 24th perfect game in Major League Baseball history.
Yeah, especially for you in NHL free agency.
It was me and Griff
and trades.
Yeah, it's been a lot, but again, they're in similar places now with the NBA and the NHL. There's lots of dominoes that have to fall before October comes around.
And that's like year round when it comes to when the
Yeah.
season begins, ends, playoffs,
Yep.
free agency,
Deadline,
they're all in
free
the same
agency,
window.
draft. Yeah. It's gonna be something to watch. But
What do you think about your Islanders? Like, at least from like
I
a
I
draft or a trade or
I've made
signing stand,
some
like, what do
I
you think?
made a post about it, and I also made a video about it on the YouTube. It's tough
Check that
because
out.
yes, the Vendetta YouTube, always check it out. But I mean, the Islanders are bringing the band back together, which is like, all right, they made the playoffs last year. They made it as an 8 seed or a 7 seed and lost in the first round. But again, the kind of the only benefit of the doubt that I can give them is their big acquisition during last year's trade deadline, Bo Horvat. Again, he's trade deadline, so he hasn't had a full season with the team yet. And they also picked up another guy named Pierre Engvall. They gave him a 7-year deal that pays him $3 million per season. So
Is
in
that,
terms of
again,
NHL
you tried
economy,
to
that's
explain this to me. Is that a lot?
yes. So $3 million is like
It'd be an
basically
equivalent.
like a bench player in the NBA. Like, nothing too crazy. Not like, groundbreaking money
So
in
like
NHL terms.
7 to 10 million.
Yeah, exactly. And only thing, obviously, the NBA does not, you cannot hand out term like that in the NHL, 7, 8 year deals. But that's what the
Yeah,
Islanders were doing. And they gave their star goalie an 8 year deal. And
I did
basically,
see that.
goalies in hockey have become the running backs of the NHL. You don't really
Running
want to
back.
commit. You don't want to commit too much money too long term. Stuff like that. And so now we're gonna wait and see. We're gonna have to see how it goes with that. And if these new guys they got at the trade deadline do have a good first full season, then maybe things will look up. But if not, then we're in a bit of a tough spot because the
Uh,
Islanders are going to be kind of hard capped like the Knicks are. You're pretty much set with this group, and
yeah.
not really much financial flexibility. But I keep my fingers crossed with the Islanders. I keep them crossed with the Knicks, with the Yankees, and yet they still all let me down one way or another. So we'll have to see how it goes. Uh, hey, at least better than nothing, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again, it's the 4th of July, Matt. We have a hot dog eating contest that's coming up soon. Joey Chestnut is going to try and keep his crown. I forget when that starts, but I saw someone made a post about Joey Chestnut in his hot dog eating legendary whatever. But hey, it's Independence Day. We've got baseball coming up.
I mean,
We've got
baseball's
summer
going on
league
right now.
coming
I'm
up.
looking at it. The Reds are up in the annual 4th of July Nationals game in DC that starts at 11 a.m. Eastern every year.
Wow.
The Reds are up 6-1.
Hey, shout out Ellie De La Cruz and the Reds. They are one of the most
They're
fun
so
teams
much
to
fun.
watch in
They're
baseball
so
right
much
now.
fun.
He
TJ
arguably,
Friedel, Matt McLean,
yeah.
Nick
The
Senzel,
return of Joey Votto,
Jonathan India, Joey
yeah.
Votto. They
TJ
just need to get a
Friedel.
pitching staff, and it's
Yeah,
funny because it's
exactly. They
like
just got to get a couple
if they're
more
gonna
arms.
buy, they're gonna need to acquire like an ace level or not an ace
I was
level,
gonna
but
say,
like
do some business with your Chicago Cubs. Get Marcus Stroman in the fold.
I mean that, but it's also just funny because where they were at a year ago with Luis Castillo,
Oh yeah,
and they had
they
to
would
trade
have
him
loved to
20.
have him right now, but
Yeah,
obviously some of those pieces they got from that deal are gonna help.
yeah.
But Matt, is the 4th of July episode. Any closing thoughts? Let's go Heat.
Just get the Dame deal done.
Agreed.
Just get the Dame deal done. Again, I know I'm gonna say this right now. This is my closing thoughts. I don't expect anything to happen this week. I think
It's going to drag out, right?
I think it's gonna drag out because I just think you want to. I think they want to get this done sooner rather than later. But I if anything, I expect something to happen next week. I know I sent you a text yesterday being like, would be very funny if this
Yeah,
just
just had to happen
during this episode.
just
That'd be
just
awesome.
how
That'd be
these things
great
work.
content.
That would just be beautiful live
Uh,
content.
let's hope. I mean, again, I say that knowing our luck, something's going to happen in like 15 minutes,
I know, but
just out of nowhere.
just how the Daily Show works sometimes.
Yeah,
Trey says, "Enjoy your holiday, Trey. You enjoy your holiday too, sir."
yeah. You enjoy your holiday, Trey. You enjoy your holiday, Bagdonis.
Yeah, you too, man. You got any barbecues? Anything fun planned?
I actually don't. No, I'm doing. I was gonna do something. My dad's gonna be out of town. I was gonna drive home, but I'm probably just gonna kick it.
Hey, there's summer league to watch. There's baseball. The
Well,
Yankees will
not
be on.
today. They're not having 4th of July Summer League. That's just the 3rd and the 5th. At least
third.
I
Oh,
know
I
for the
thought it was.
California Classic. I don't think they're doing it for the Salt Lake City one either. But yeah,
Hey, if the Yankees can,
for every team is July 7th. So
yeah,
stay tuned.
that's right. But hopefully the Yankees can sweep the Orioles, and we'll be moving out of 4th place and closer to 2nd place. But again, everyone, I hope you have a lovely 4th of July. Have some fun.
Like and
Do your
subscribe.
thing. Like and subscribe. We'll have a post out on this soon with timestamps. And everyone, make sure to tune in tomorrow for the next daily show. And we'll see you on